Imagine this. You graduate, you're ready to finally start your career, maybe get your own place, and then bam, the reality of your student loans hits you. And it's heavier than you ever thought it would be.
Yeah, it really is. Or maybe even worse, you find out that some, small mistakes you made way back as a freshman, they're actually costing you thousands now.
Thousands in extra interest, adding years to your payments, putting a real dent in plans like buying a car or maybe saving for a house down the line.
Yeah.
It's a painful spot for a lot of people.
It absolutely is. The sheer amount of student debt out there in the U.S. is staggering. And honestly, trying to figure out the loans, the interest, the repayment plans, it can feel totally overwhelming. Making smart choices before you borrow and while you're in school, not just when the first bill arrives.
Yeah.
That's just critical.
And that's exactly what we're digging into in this deep dive. So welcome back, everyone. Today we're focused squarely on U.S. student loans. We're going to pinpoint those common, really painful mistakes people make.
And crucially, how you can avoid them.
Right. We've gone through a bunch of guides, resources, stuff on loans, credit, financial planning that you send us.
Think of this as sort of cutting through the noise. We want to highlight the biggest pitfalls, the things that can genuinely come back to bite you later so you can handle this whole student debt thing wisely right from the get-go.
Okay, let's unpack it. First, just the big picture. Why do student loans need such, careful handling anyway? We all get that education is valuable.
Definitely.
I mean, the sources back it up with data. College grads generally earn more, face less unemployment. It's an investment, right?
Exactly. It's often a fantastic investment in your future, your career stability. But like any big investment, especially when you're funding with debt, you've got to go in with your eyes open. You need a strategy.
Because college is expensive. No way around that. And loans are, for many, the only way to bridge that gap.
Which leads right into the need for caution. We saw a quote from Jason Matlock, a financial aid counselor, that really sums it up well.
What does he say?
He said, basically, it is important to make sure that you are cautious when assuming any type of debt and to always read or discuss the terms. He goes on, you should not be afraid of debt. You just have to make sure that you are financially capable of relieving yourself of that debt while still maintaining a comfortable lifestyle.
That's a great way to put it. Debt isn't inherently evil if it's getting you something valuable, like education.
Right. The danger is not understanding what you're signing up for. Borrowing more than you can realistically pay back based on what you expect to earn, letting it mess up your life later on.
You need a solid repayment plan from day one.
And a huge part of that plan, really your whole financial future, hinges on your credit history.
Yeah, we saw some stuff about credit systems. The details might vary place to place, but the core idea is universal, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's a record kept of how you borrow and how you pay it back. And that record, your credit history, well, it impacts almost everything.
Like renting an apartment, getting a car loan.
Definitely. Getting a mortgage, sometimes even getting certain jobs or professional licenses. Your student loan payments are a major long-term part of that history.
So paying on time builds good history.
Builds positive history, yeah. But missing payments or defaulting, that does serious damage that can take years, maybe even decades to fix.
And a bad credit score just makes everything more difficult and more expensive.
Pretty much everything financial, yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into those specific mistakes. The sources flagged a few key ones. The first one feels, fundamental.
Yeah.
Mistake number 1, overlooking free money.
Ah, yes, the golden rule. You absolutely cannot skip this step. Loans cost you money, the interest adds up. Free money, that's grants and scholarships.
Money you don't pay back, ever.
Exactly. It sounds completely obvious, but you'd be surprised how many students don't really dig deep for grants and scholarships. The sources couldn't be clearer. Max out this free, non-repayable money first.
Before you even think about borrowing a dime.
Look absolutely everywhere. Don't just think about grades or financial need, although those are huge. There are scholarships for, everything. Specific majors, your background, hobbies.
I've heard of some really specific ones, like for being tall or left-handed.
Right. It pays to search widely. And don't forget things like military benefits if you or a parent served, or check if your employer or a future employer offers tuition assistance. Lots of companies do that now.
They see it as investing in their workforce.
Exactly. And a huge gateway to a lot of this free money, especially federal grants like the Pell Grant, is the FAFS.
The free application for federal student aid. One source specifically mentioned that grants are often need-based, linked to your income.
That's right. Filling out the FAFS isn't just for loans, it's how you access those federal grants you literally can't get otherwise. Yeah, it's some paperwork.
Seems like a hassle sometimes.
It can feel like it, but spending that time doing it accurately every single year you're in school, that could unlock thousands in grant money you never have to repay. Think of the return on that time investment.
You're basically leaving free cash on the table if you don't do it.
You really are. Big mistake to skip it.
Okay, so mistake number 1. Prioritize and maximize free money. Got it. What's the next common pitfall?
Mistake number 2. Frivolous spending with loan money.
Okay. This is when that loan money hits your bank account, right? Tuition's covered, fees are paid, and there's still a chunk left over.
Suddenly it feels like, like spending money, like income. The temptation is definitely real.
But the sources warn strongly against this. Using that leftover loan money for like a spring break trip or a shopping spree, stuff that's not actually related to your education costs.
Exactly. Look, student loans are meant to cover necessary educational costs and basic living expenses while you're studying, but basic living expenses doesn't mean funding a lavish lifestyle.
Right.
Every single dollar you spend from a loan is a dollar you borrowed, and you're going to pay interest on it. For years, maybe even decades. That fun trip, it gets incredibly expensive when you add, say, 20 years of interest onto the price tag.
So the rule is, be strict, be responsible, use loan funds for legitimate educational costs only.
Yes, and the sources help define what those usually are. Tuition, obviously. Mandatory fees, like those tech fees almost every school has now.
Textbooks, supplies.
Books, required materials, yeah. Necessary living costs, rent, utilities if you're off campus, food costs, student health insurance if you need it through the school, basic transportation to get to class. Those are the essentials.
The kinds of things listed in sources like Study in the USA or iVolunteer.
Right. But using loan money for non-essentials, that iVolunteer source had a fantastic concrete example.
The one about textbooks.
Yeah. It said, if you can use cash, maybe money you earned from a part-time job or saved up to buy your books and materials, instead of borrowing more loan money, you could save, say, $300 to $500 every semester.
Wow. Okay. Per semester.
I think about that over 4 years. That's potentially $2,400 to $4,000 you didn't borrow. Now factor in interest over a typical 10 or 20-year repayment.
You're saving thousands more just in interest payments.
Easily. It's a simple choice. Pay cash now or borrow and pay much more later. Every dollar you avoid borrowing for something you don't strictly need saves you that dollar plus all the interest it would have racked up.
That really drives it home. It's not just the sticker price of the item. It's the long tail of interest, which actually leads perfectly into mistake number 3, borrowing more money than you actually need.
Exactly. Ties right in. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? But it happens all the time. The principle is just fundamental. The less you borrow now, the less you, plus interest, have to pay back later. It's basic math.
Loans should be the absolute last resort, the final piece of the funding puzzle.
They should only be used to fill the gap after you've exhausted everything else. Grants, scholarships, personal savings, any family help, money from a job, all that comes first.
So instead of just automatically accepting the maximum loan amount the school offers you,
which, by the way, is often just calculated based on the official cost of attendance minus whatever aid they think your family can contribute. It doesn't always reflect your specific minimal needs.
All right, you need to be more strategic than that.
Definitely. One source suggested getting a part-time job specifically to cover daily expenses like food or going out occasionally so you don't borrow for that stuff. And crucially, that iVolunteer source. It recommended reassessing your financial situation every single semester.
Every semester? Why so often?
Because things change. Maybe you snagged a new scholarship for the spring, or you found a cheaper apartment. Your aid package itself might shift. By looking at it fresh each term, you figure out the exact amount you still need after all other resources for that specific period.
You pinpoint the gap precisely.
Yeah. The source explicitly warned against taking out excessive loans. It's about being really targeted with your borrowing, not just taking the full amount because it's offered.
So how do you figure out what's excessive for you? How can you know if you'll be able to handle the payments later?
That's another really important piece of homework the sources suggest doing early on. Research the average starting salary for the career path you're aiming for.
Before you even graduate.
Absolutely. It's not going to be exact, of course, but it gives you a realistic ballpark figure for your potential future income. Then use online student loan calculators. They're everywhere. Plug in different total loan amounts and see what the estimated monthly payments would be.
So you're basically creating a future budget forecast.
Right.
Projected income versus projected loan payments.
That's exactly it. You're trying to gauge, does this estimated monthly payment seem manageable based on that likely starting salary? Can I still live reasonably comfortably? Or is this debt load going to strangle my finances right out of the gate?
Because borrowing too much now doesn't just mean higher payments later.
It drastically limits your choices and your lifestyle after you graduate. You're essentially building a cage for your future self today.
That kind of upfront reality check seems invaluable. It makes the abstract loan number feel very real, very concrete in terms of your future paycheck. Okay, let's move to the next one. This feels like a big source of anxiety, and the consequences sound genuinely painful. Mistake number 4, not understanding your repayment options and the huge cost of defaulting.
Right. This is where that old Benjamin Franklin saying really hits home. Don't put off until tomorrow what you can do today. Waiting till graduation, or worse, until payments are already due to figure out your options. That's just asking for trouble, panic mode.
You need to get a handle on the terms and repayment possibilities now, while you're still in school, ideally.
Or at the very least during your grace period. And the sources really hammered this point. Stay in touch with your loan servicer, whoever manages your loan payments. Ignoring their calls or emails, that's the fastest route to default.
Proactive communication is key.
Absolutely critical, because the consequences of defaulting, especially on federal student loans, they are severe and far-reaching. TexasLawHelp.org laid them out pretty starkly. The government has serious power to collect defaulted federal debt.
Okay, walk us through those consequences. What actually happens if you default?
Well, first off, something called administrative wage garnishment. This is often the first hammer to fall.
Wage garnishment, meaning they take money directly out of your paycheck.
Exactly. They can take a chunk of your salary, often up to 15% of your disposable income, without even needing a court order in many cases. Your employer gets notified, and your take-home pay just shrinks.
Ouch. That hurts immediately.
Yeah. Second, your credit score takes a nosedive. We already talked about how vital credit is. Defaulting craters your score. Makes it incredibly tough and way more expensive to get approved for car loans, mortgages, credit cards. Even renting an apartment becomes harder.
So those post-graduation goals just got pushed way further out.
Pretty much. Third, and this is a big one people often don't realize, it can block you from getting or renewing professional licenses.
Really? Like for teaching or nursing?
Teaching, nursing, law, cosmetology, skilled trades like plumbing. Many fields require state licenses. Being in default on a federal student loan can actually disqualify you.
Wow. So it's not just a financial hit. It can literally stop your career cold.
It's a direct threat to your ability to earn a living in your chosen field. Fourth, the IRS can withhold your federal tax refunds. Expecting money back. Nope. It can be seized and applied to that defaulted loan.
Another nasty surprise.
And finally, the U.S. Department of Education can actually sue you to collect the debt. And here's the kicker. For federal student loans, there is no statute of limitations on these lawsuits.
Wait, no statute of limitations. Unlike most other debts where they have a limited time to sue you, the government can come after you for federal student loans forever.
That's correct. Years, even decades later, they can initiate legal action. It just underscores how seriously this debt is treated.
Right.
Avoiding default isn't just about your credit score. It's about avoiding this potentially lifelong financial shadow.
Those consequences are incredibly serious. So if someone is struggling, maybe lost their job or facing hardship, what options do the sources mention to manage payments and stay out of default?
The key, again, is contacting your lender or loan servicer immediately. Don't wait until you've already missed payments. Be proactive. Several options exist, mainly for federal loans.
Okay, what are some of those lifelines?
Well, there's deferment and forbearance. These are temporary solutions. They let you postpone payments or sometimes make smaller payments for a set period. It's like hitting a pause button if you hit a rough patch.
That sounds helpful, but there's a catch, right? With the interest.
There usually is. With most types of forbearance and for any unsubsidized loans while they're in deferment, interest continues to pile up during that pause. And often that accrued interest gets capitalized when the deferment or forbearance period ends.
Capitalization again. Explain that. Why is it so bad?
Okay, so capitalization means any unpaid interest gets added onto your principal loan balance. Let's say you owe $20,000, and during forbearance, $1,000 in interest accrues. When capitalization happens, your new principal balance becomes $21,000.
So now you're paying interest not just on the original $20K, but on the full $21K.
Exactly. You're paying interest on the interest. It makes your loan balance grow faster and increases the total amount you'll repay over time. It's a sneaky way debt balloons. It typically happens after forbearance or deferment ends, or sometimes if you switch repayment plans. Avoiding it when possible is really key.
So deferment and forbearance offer temporary breathing room, but they can end up costing more long-term because of that interest. Use them carefully.
Right. They're meant for short-term hiccups, not a permanent fix. A better long-term option for federal loans, if you qualify, is an income-based repayment IBR plan, or similar income-driven plans.
How does IBR work?
Basically, your monthly payment isn't based on how much you owe. It's calculated based on your discretionary income. Essentially, your income minus basic living expenses and your family size.
So if your income is low right after graduation, your payment could be really low too.
It could even be $0 per month if your income falls below a certain level. It's designed precisely for that situation. Your payment amount is recalculated each year based on your updated income and family info, so it adjusts as your circumstances change.
It sounds like a huge safety net.
It is. To get on IBR initially, you usually can't be in default, and you need to show that your payment under the standard 10-year plan would be higher than the IBR calculation. One source noted you can stay on IBR even if your income goes up later, though your payment will increase too. It provides flexibility.
Okay, so IBR links payments to what you can actually afford. That seems like a vital federal benefit.
Absolutely. One of the most powerful tools federal borrowers have. Another option people consider is consolidation.
That's combining multiple loans into one, right?
Yes, specifically combining multiple federal loans into one new federal consolidation loan. You end up with just one monthly payment.
Sounds simpler.
It can definitely simplify the billing. But, like everything, you have to weigh the pros and cons really carefully. My tour went into detail on this. A big reason people consolidate is to extend the repayment period.
Make it longer than the standard 10 years.
Yeah, you can often stretch it out up to 30 years.
Okay, longer term means lower monthly payments, I assume.
That's the main attraction, yes.
Yep.
Lower payments can ease cash flow pressure. My tour listed other potential pros, too. The convenience of one payment, maybe getting access to repayment plans like IBR if your original loans weren't eligible, potentially qualifying for borrower benefits like an interest rate discount for autopay.
What about for private loans? Can you consolidate those?
You can consolidate private loans, yes, often through a private lender. The potential benefit there might be getting a lower interest rate if your credit has improved significantly since you first took out the loans, or maybe switching from a risky variable rate to a predictable fixed rate.
Okay, those sound like potential upsides. But what are the catches, the downsides of consolidation?
The biggest one, almost always, is the total cost. Stretching payments over 20 or 30 years, even if the interest rate stays the same or is slightly lower, means you will pay way more in total interest over the life of the loan.
Ah, right. Lower payments now, but a much bigger total bill in the end. You're in debt for much, much longer.
Exactly. My tour highlighted this. Larger total repayment, being indebted longer. You might also lose specific benefits tied to your original loans, like maybe small rate discounts you earn for on-time payments. Sometimes consolidating can even trigger repayment of benefits you already received. And while less common now, some older private loans might have prepayment penalties you need to watch for.
So consolidation isn't a magic bullet. It needs serious thought.
And this leads to the single most critical warning about consolidation, hammered home by my tour: never, ever consolidate federal student loans together with private student loans.
Never mix them. Why is that such a strict rule?
Because the moment you bundle federal loans into a private consolidation loan, they become private loans. The entire new loan is private. And you permanently lose all the unique, valuable protections and benefits that come with federal loans.
Like income-based repayment.
Gone. Potential eligibility for public service loan forgiveness. Gone. The more generous federal deferment and forbearance options. Gone. Private loans just don't offer that safety net.
So even if it means having two separate loan payments each month, one for your federal loans, maybe consolidated together as federal loans, and one for your private loans, maybe consolidated separately as private loans, that's better.
Infinitely better. My tour was absolutely clear. Keep your federal loans federal. Mixing them with private loans is an irreversible mistake that strips away crucial protections. Don't do it.
Okay, that's a very clear warning. How do they figure out the interest rate if you consolidate just your federal loans? The source mentioned some kind of weighted average.
Yeah, my tour explained the federal consolidation rate calculation. It's not necessarily lower. They take a weighted average of the interest rates on the federal loans you're including. The weighting is based on the principal balance of each loan.
Okay, weighted average.
Then, and this is key, they round that resulting average rate up to the nearest 1/8 of 1%.
Round up, not down.
Round up, always. My tour had that example with Maurice's loans.
Right, walk us through that. How did it work?
Okay, so Marisa had 2 federal loans.
Yeah.
One for $3,500, 3.6% interest, and another for $6,500 at 6.8% interest. Total principal is $10,000.
Got it.
To get the weighted average rate, you do $3,500, 3.6%, plus $6,500, 6.8%, all divided by the total principal, $10,000.
Okay, let's see. $126 plus $442 is 568%. Divided by 10,000, that's 0.0568 or 5.68%.
Perfect. Now you take that 5.68% and round it up to the nearest 18th percent. Since 18th percent is 0.125%, the next 18th percent mark above 5.68% is 5.75%.
So her new consolidated loan rate is 5.75%, which is higher than her 3.6% loan, but lower than her 6.8% loan.
Exactly. And my tour's point was, do this math yourself before you consolidate. Because now Maurice is paying 5.75% on the entire $10,000. That $3,500 portion that was at 3.6%, now it's at 5.75%. Combine that potentially higher effective rate with a much longer repayment term that usually comes with consolidation.
And the total interest paid skyrockets over time.
Almost inevitably, yes. Consolidation offers simplicity and lower monthly payments, but often at a significantly higher total cost.
That example really clarifies the math and the trade-off. Okay, next, painful mistake. Number 5, confusing variable interest rates for fixed rates.
Yes, this loops back to really understanding your loan terms. The interest rate itself is obviously huge, but you also have to know if that rate can change on you.
So what's the basic difference again?
Fixed rate. Simple. It's set when you take out the loan, and it stays the same for the entire loan term. Doesn't matter what happens in the economy, your interest rate is locked in. Predictable.
Predictable is good when it comes to debt.
Usually, yes. Variable rate. This one can change, fluctuate. The study in the USA source mentioned they're often tied to some economic index, like LIBOR used to be, or maybe the prime rate now. As that index goes up or down, your loan's interest rate can follow.
So your monthly payment could actually increase or decrease.
Correct. Variable rates might look tempting because they sometimes start out lower than fixed rates. But if interest rates rise generally, your rate goes up too, and your payment could jump significantly. Over many years, you could end up paying a lot more in interest than if you'd locked in a slightly higher fixed rate from the start.
It adds risk and uncertainty.
Big time. And the Abbound source added a good point. Ask your servicer how interest capitalization works with variable rates. If the rate rises and your payment doesn't cover all the new, higher interest, that unpaid interest can capitalize more frequently, making your balance grow even faster.
Yikes. So fixed offers stability, variable offers potential savings, but also potential pain.
That's the trade-off. For most borrowers, especially with long-term debt like student loans, the predictability of a fixed rate is generally preferred. And as my tour noted, if you have a private loan with a variable rate that's making you nervous, consolidating that private loan into a new fixed-rate private loan might be an option to gain stability.
Okay, that makes sense. On to mistake number 6, borrowing from private lenders first.
This is another area where the guidance from the sources was really strong and consistent. The advice is crystal clear. Always max out your federal student loan options before you even consider private loans.
Federal first. Always. Why such a strong stance?
The Abound source laid out the reasons very well. Federal loans generally have better, more borrower-friendly terms. Think about those flexible repayment plans like IBR, the deferment and forbearance options we discussed. Private loans typically don't offer those robust safety nets.
Okay, better terms.
They're also widely available, often cheaper with lower interest rates, especially compared to private loans for borrowers without stellar credit. And most federal loans, like the main Stafford Direct loans, have fixed interest rates. Plus, crucially, eligibility for most federal loans isn't based on your credit history.
So they're easier to get for young students without much credit, usually cheaper, safer with fixed rates, and have better repayment protections.
Exactly. Private loans, they're from banks, credit unions, other financial institutions. Terms vary wildly. Rates are often higher, might be variable, and getting approved usually depends heavily on your credit score or needing a credit-worthy cosigner.
So the advice is, only turn to private loans if what?
Only if you've hit the borrowing limit for federal loans for the year, you've explored all other aid options, and you still have a documented gap in funding your essential educational costs. They are the loan of last resort.
We should mention that exception for international students again, right?
Yes, absolutely a critical point from the study in the USA source. Federal aid is generally for U.S. citizens and eligible non-citizens. International students studying here usually aren't eligible for federal loans.
So they have to rely on private lenders.
Typically, yes. And those private lenders almost always require them to have a cosigner who is a U.S. citizen or permanent resident with good credit. So for international students, the hierarchy is different. It's about finding the best private loan they can qualify for, usually with that cosigner's help.
Okay, but for the vast majority of U.S. students, federal first, period. If someone does reach the point of needing a private loan, one source mentioned finding a good lender. What does that mean?
Yeah, iVolunteer suggested being selective. Don't just go with the first offer. They recommended starting with your own bank or credit union, places you already have a relationship. Or, importantly, ask the financial aid office at your college.
They might have suggestions.
They often keep lists of private lenders that students at their school have used before, lenders they consider reputable. And remember, as Study in the USA pointed out, needing a cosigner is very common for private loans. So that's part of the process too.
Which brings us nicely to the final major mistake on our list. And this one seems like it could help avoid almost all the others if people just did it. Mistake number 7. Not talking to a financial aid counselor.
Oh, absolutely. This is such a huge missed opportunity. You have this free expert resource right there on campus, and so many students just don't use them effectively or at all.
The Abound source called them experienced guides.
And they really are. These folks live and breathe financial aid. They understand the specific costs at your school, all the federal regulations, the state grant programs, the institutional scholarships. They know the landscape inside and out.
So how exactly can they help a student?
In so many ways. They can help you understand the true cost of attending that specific school, help you identify every possible source of funding those grants and scholarships you might not even know exist, guide you through filling out the FESA and any other applications correctly, explain the differences between loan types, help you compare loan offers if you get multiple ones, make sure you understand the terms before you sign, help you think about budgeting and planning for repayment down the road.
They really sound like a one-stop shop for navigating the whole financial side of college.
Pretty much. Abound strongly recommended making an appointment, going in, talking to them. They can give you personalized advice for your situation. And as iVolunteer noted, they can even offer recommendations for reputable private lenders if you absolutely need one. It's literally their job to help you pay for college as responsibly as possible.
It seems crazy not to use that resource. Why try to puzzle through this incredibly complex and high-stakes system all by yourself when there's an expert sitting right there, paid by the university, ready to help you?
Exactly. Not tapping into their expertise is just leaving valuable guidance on the table. Easily avoidable mistake.
Okay, so those are the big 7 mistakes. But our source materials also touched on a few other really important related topics. Things like cosigners, how the money actually gets paid out, and some of those less common ways loans might be dealt with.
Right. Let's touch on cosigners again briefly. We mentioned them mostly for private loans. Study in the USA defined a cosigner clearly. It's someone, often a parent or relative, who legally agrees to repay the loan if you, the student borrower, don't.
So they're on the hook just as much as the student.
Legally, yes. It's a major financial commitment for the cosigner. If the student misses payments, it damages the cosigner's credit score too. If the student defaults, the lender will absolutely pursue the cosigner for the full debt.
That's a serious obligation.
It really is. Both the student and anyone considering cosigning need to understand the risks fully. Yes, having a cosigner can help a student with thin credit get approved for a private loan, but it transfers significant risk.
Okay. What about loan disbursement? How does the money actually flow? Does the lender just cut you a check?
Not usually, no. Study in the USA outlined the typical process, especially for federal loans. Once the loan is approved and you've signed the paperwork, the lender sends the money directly to your school's financial aid office.
Not to the student first.
Nope, to the school. The school first verifies you're enrolled, attending classes, etc. Then they apply the loan funds directly to your student account to cover tuition, fees, maybe room and board if you live on campus.
And if there's money left over after those charges?
Then the school disperses the remaining balance to you, the student. That's the money you use for books, supplies, off-campus rent, other approved educational expenses. The school acts as a kind of gatekeeper to ensure the funds are used for education first.
Got it. Okay, now shifting to trickier territory. Loan discharge. We know student loans are hard to get rid of, especially in bankruptcy, but Texas Law Help mentioned some specific, limited ways federal loans can be discharged without going to bankruptcy court.
Yes, these are quite specific and relatively rare circumstances. One is total and permanent disability, TPD. If a borrower becomes completely unable to work due to a severe, long-lasting physical or mental disability, they can apply for a TPD discharge. Requires medical documentation.
Makes sense. What else?
Another is if the school falsely certified your eligibility for the loan. Maybe they said you met requirements when you didn't, or even forged your signature. Also, if you properly withdrew from school, but the school failed to return required loan funds back to the lender.
So situations involving school error or misconduct.
Right. And a big one is school closure. If your school shuts down while you're enrolled, or very shortly after you withdraw, usually within 120 days per Texas Law Help, you might be eligible for discharge.
What are the rules around that school closure discharge?
The main idea is you couldn't finish your program because the school closed. Texas Law Help clarified this can apply even if you got some kind of certificate, as long as you didn't complete the full program. But a key exception: if you were able to transfer your credits to a different school and finish a similar program there, you generally wouldn't qualify for the discharge for the closed school's loans. You need to apply specifically for this.
These are definitely not get-out-of-debt-free cards for most people. Very specific situations.
Exactly. They're targeted at situations where the loan essentially didn't provide the educational value intended due to disability, school issues, or closure.
Now, what about bankruptcy discharge? We keep saying it's extremely difficult. How does that actually work based on the sources?
Texas Law Help confirms it's tough. For both federal and most private student loans, just filing for bankruptcy doesn't automatically wipe them out. You have to file a separate lawsuit within the bankruptcy case called an adversary proceeding.
A lawsuit within a lawsuit.
Kind of, yeah. And in that proceeding, you have to prove to the bankruptcy judge that repaying the student loans would cause you and your dependents undue hardship.
And undue hardship is the really high bar to clear.
It is. Courts interpret it differently, but generally you have to show you can't maintain even a minimal standard of living if forced to repay, that this situation is likely to continue long-term, and that you've made good faith efforts to repay in the past. It's very hard to prove. Successful discharges are rare.
But Texas Law Help mentioned some newer guidance from late 2022.
Yes, new guidance from the Departments of Justice and Education. It doesn't change the law, but it creates a more standardized process for federal loan borrowers in bankruptcy. Borrowers can submit specific financial documents, and the government attorneys will review them based on clearer criteria.
And then the government might agree to a discharge.
They might recommend a full discharge, a partial discharge, or no discharge to the judge. The judge still makes the final call based on the undue hardship standard. But the hope is this process leads to more consistent, fair outcomes, and maybe more settlements, where the government agrees to discharge without a costly trial.
Still sounds like you definitely need a lawyer if you're considering bankruptcy with student loans.
Oh, absolutely essential. Especially with this new guidance, don't try to navigate that alone.
Okay. Another specific loan type mentioned: parent PLUS loans. What happens if the student drops out or doesn't finish? Does the parent still owe the money?
Yes. Texas Law Help was unequivocal. Parent PLUS loans are borrowed by the parent for the student's education, but the legal responsibility rests 100% with the parent borrower.
Regardless of what the student does.
Regardless. Whether the student graduates, drops out, moves away, the parent owes the loan. The only ways a parent PLUS loan is typically discharged are the death of the parent borrower or the student it was for, or the total and permanent disability of the parent borrower.
That's a critical point for parents to understand before they take out those loans.
Yeah.
Their obligation is absolute.
It really is a significant risk to consider. Lastly, on a more positive note for some borrowers, the sources mentioned Public Service Loan Forgiveness, PSLF.
Right. How does that work again?
PSLF is a program specifically for eligible federal direct loans. Texas Law Help explained that if a borrower works full-time for a qualifying public service employer.
Like a government agency or a nonprofit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Government at any level, federal, state, local, tribal, or most 501c3 nonprofits. If you work full-time for one of these employers and make 120 qualifying monthly payments on your direct loans, usually under an income-driven repayment plan.
That's 10 years of payments.
10 years, yes. After you hit that 120 qualifying payment mark while maintaining qualifying employment, the remaining balance on your eligible federal loans can be forgiven, tax-free.
Wow. So for people committed to careers in public service, that could potentially wipe out a huge amount of debt after a decade.
It's a massive potential benefit. It's a complex program, requires careful tracking of payments and employment certification over the years. But yes, for those who qualify and stick with it, it can be life-changing.
Definitely a significant light at the end of the tunnel for that group.
Okay, wow. We've really covered a lot of ground today. Everything from making sure you grab that free money first and only borrowing what you absolutely need.
Right, through understanding all those repayment options, IBR, consolidation, the differences between fixed and variable rates.
And the serious consequences of default. Why you need to avoid that at all costs.
And the pitfalls of private loans versus federal, the importance of talking to financial aid counselors.
Plus those extra details on co-signers, how the money flows, and those specific discharge scenarios like disability, school closure, PSLF, and the difficulty of bankruptcy.
I think if there's one big takeaway from all of this, from all the sources, it's that managing student debt isn't really something you start thinking about after you graduate.
No, it has to start way earlier. It's a process. It requires making informed, proactive choices right from the beginning, even before you sign that first loan agreement. It's about financial literacy, really.
Applying that literacy to what is, for many young people, one of the biggest financial decisions they'll make. Using debt strategically, yes, as an investment, but then managing it super carefully, knowing all the rules and your options.
Exactly. Student loan debt can feel like this huge, scary mountain, right?
Definitely overwhelming sometimes.
But understanding the terrain, knowing where the dangers are, those mistakes we talked about, like loose rocks or hidden crevasses, and knowing the available paths, the repayment options, the expert help, it makes the climb seem much more manageable. It drastically improves your chances of getting to the top without falling into those painful traps.
So let's leave our listeners with a thought to mull over. Student debt, even if it's substantial, it's ultimately a tool, isn't it? A way to potentially reach your educational goals.
It can be, yeah.
The real challenge maybe isn't avoiding the tool altogether if you truly need it, but learning how to use that tool strategically, responsibly, with full awareness of its power, both good and bad.
Well said.
So here's the question for you listening. What's one specific, concrete action you can take today, based on what we've discussed, to get a better handle on your own student loan situation, whether you're just planning for college, in the middle of it, or already making payments?
Maybe it's simple, like log into your loan servicer's website and just see what types of loans you actually have. Or pull your credit report, you can get it free annually, and see how your loans are listed.
Or maybe make that appointment with the financial aid office you've been putting off.
Or use an online calculator to estimate your payment under an IBR plan, just to see. Any single step towards more understanding is a step towards feeling more in control.
That's a great call to action. Just do one thing. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into navigating U.S. student loans and trying to sidestep those common, painful mistakes.
Hope it was helpful.
We really hope this conversation gave you some valuable insights and maybe some confidence to manage your own student debt journey wisely.